news, journalists have rounded on the Ukrainian authorities for faking the assassination of a Russian opposition reporter in Kiev. International media and security watchdogs have slammed the stunt as deplorable and regrettable.
The staged murder of journalist Arkady Babchenko by the Ukrainian security service is distressing. While the reappearance of the reporter may be a great relief, it is deeply regrettable that Ukraine's authorities have played with the truth, no matter what their motive.
Relieved that Arkady Babchenko is alive, I deplore the decision to spread false information on the life of a journalist. It is the duty of the state to provide correct information to the public.
Well, earlier, the Ukrainian authorities had claimed that they'd found Russian journalist Arkady Babchenko with gunshot wounds in his flat in the capital. It was claimed that he died on his way to hospital. However, later it was revealed that the murder had been staged, apparently, in order to foil an actual Russian plot to kill the journalist. Arkady Babchenko is a prominent Kremlin critic who's condemned Russian activities in Ukraine and Syria. He's a contributor too for major UK news outlets like The Guardian and also the BBC. RT's Donald Courter reports now on the fallout of the controversial case.
When a Russian journalist was pronounced murdered in the Ukrainian capital, it didn't take long for the ceremonial finger-pointing at Russia to begin.
He was only working on things that were critical and investigative of Russia and of the Russian government as well. He said there was nothing that was critical of the Ukrainians. Of course, that network and its boss placing the blame on the Kremlin and on Russia.
Journalists' known political leanings have led some to point the finger in one direction.
It was a calculated, deliberate, international terrorist crime committed on the direct instruction of the Russian authorities.
Who can blame them when the story has all the perfect ingredients? The Russian totalitarian machine, Putin's regime going after the Kremlin critic. Except the guy turned up alive and well. Imagine everyone's confusion.
What on earth is going on, Fred?
Well, these developments in just the last hour or so,
Yes.
I know, left us absolutely gobsmacked.
Wait a second, so what the heck actually happened here?
Russia said it was relieved that Arkady Babchenko's alive, but also furious, and understandably so after being falsely accused of murder.
Questions of life and death in Ukraine, as well as the international community's trust in its politics, are nothing more than a bargaining chip for the Kiev's regime to stir up anti-Russian hysteria.
Babchenko's fellow journalists were outraged too.
When a state says a prominent journalist who had received threats was murdered, I think the media have to report it. But with their fake news, Babchenko and Ukraine have reduced all of our credibility. Trump would be proud.
Had learned not to trust Ukrainian authorities on Donbass war info, but assumed on something like this official confirmation was solid. Apologies.
It's on Wikipedia's most notable fake deaths. So what gives? Well, the murder was staged by the Ukrainian Secret Service to foil an alleged Kremlin plot, they say. They did it secretly. Not even his wife knew. Imagine what the poor woman went through. But one Ukrainian lawmaker thinks this is okay because
Sherlock Holmes successfully used the method of staging his own death to effectively investigate difficult and complicated crimes.
well, if it happened in fiction, must be good in real life too. Whether Ukraine will produce evidence that there was ever a Russian plot in the first place remains to be seen. But after a stunt like this, it's hard to imagine many will take anything Kiev says at face value.
The timing is key, I think. Just before we start the World Cup in Russia, which is a showcase event for any country that holds a World Cup, that hosts a World Cup, and suddenly we're getting these stories which are designed, I would speculate, to discredit Russia, and discredit Russia in the eyes of the world, just as it's about to host the World Cup. And so this is a very lamentable campaign that's being targeting Russia, because it's now interfering in areas in which